Welcome into the Off-Brand Avalanche podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about some NHL awards, and with us, we actually have a special guest, John from Off the Wall Hockey. He runs a great YouTube channel. He talks about all kinds of things from team breakdowns. You got lineup projections, playoff previews, even some prospect reports. John, thanks for coming on the show. Anything I missed there?
No, I think you pretty much got it. Really appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much. And my channel just covers the entire NHL.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, we're definitely more Avalanche based here, but it's still nice to, get someone that covers the entire league.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So really today, all I want to talk about is I want to go through each of the major awards. Some of them have finalists, some of them don't quite have finalists yet, and see who really the front runners are and who maybe some dark horses that could still win these are. So let's go ahead and get the maybe the biggest one for Avs fans. Let's talk about it first. I know Zach has been dying to for a couple weeks here. Mention it on every pod. The Calder. So it's Kubalik is the third finalist, but really this is the Hughes-Makar debate. Both rookie defensemen who put up just incredible years. In a normal year, I feel like either one of these guys could get it, but this is a real tight race. I know where the three of us stand, but John, what do you think of this debate? Are you Team Hughes or Team Makar?
I am Team Makar.
Okay.
I think Cale Makar is the better all-around player. I think he's better defensively than Quinn Hughes is. Both of them put up a ton of points. They're both dynamic defensemen that can really move the puck, skate extremely well, and honestly, they're going to be two of the best defensemen in the league going forward for the next 15 years. And it's really, really close. They're both very, very good, but I am Team Makar. I just think he's better defensively, and he's a better all-around player.
Yeah, for me, this is sorry, go ahead, Marshall.
No, Zach, go ahead.
For me, this is one of my closest two races that we have. I know Hughes definitely scored more points, but Makar played like 8 to 10 less games. So, and like John just said, he touched on it, Makar is better defensively, in my opinion, than Hughes. And even though Hughes did play the second most minutes on his team, he could be considered maybe their most valuable player in a sense. I still think Makar means more to the Avalanche and what we're trying to do here. So, I got to go Team Makar on that one.
Marshall, looks like Marshall might have lost audio, so I'll fill in the gap here. Yeah, definitely, you guys have touched on the defense, and I think I tend to think that Makar is slightly better. I think his defense is pretty underrated, but depending on who you talk to around the league, you'll hear a lot both ways. There are quite a few people who will argue that Hughes is the better defensive player, and you can cherry pick kind of whichever like advanced statistics you want to make the case for either player, but it's rare to find two. Yeah, you're back on. All right. So it's rare to find two kind of offensive defensemen who are both so strong defensively. There's typically, you'll run into guys like your Tyson Barrie, who we're very familiar with in Colorado, who, despite all the offense, doesn't show a lot on defense. So it's definitely impressive that these guys can do it both ways.
Right, and they both can score on the power play as well. Both big-time power play point getters for the rookies, leading the league in rookie power play points.
Yeah, like you guys said, I think this is a pretty, 1-2, race that we have going on here. Kubalik did have a really solid year. Putting up 30 points is nothing to be ashamed of. But he only had 16 assists, and both of these defensemen outscored them totally and in points per game. Like I've said on previous episodes, if you watch these two players like Hughes and Makar go at it, and you only use the eye test, Hughes is a dynamic player, but like I've said, Makar is like a bit of a McKinnon on the back end. So he's just absolutely electric, and skate like the wind, and it's pretty impressive just watching him play there.
Definitely. So I feel like we're all kind of on the same side for this one, which I like. I'm hoping Makar gets it. I was leaning toward Hughes, just who I thought would get it earlier this year, but I don't know. I've seen some of the some of the writers that voted that have come out and said who they voted for, there seems to be more Makar love than I had anticipated. So I think he's got a good shot at it. The knock on him is that he didn't play the full year, which is why he had fewer points.
But he did score 12 more goals than Hughes overall, which is absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
And if you've watched a bunch of these Avs games, you know that Makar is just ringing posts pretty much once or twice every game, it seems like. So,
no joke, he should have had 20 this year. It's not even joking.
I mean, if he could have buried at least half of the posts that he hit, he would have been the runaway winner in my opinion. But there is no knock on Quinn Hughes here at all. Like John had mentioned, and like I've said for a while, I think Makar, Hughes, Heiskanen, and Dahlin, these guys are going to be guys that we'll see going head to head for the North for 15, 20 years down the line here.
Yeah,
it's just an exciting time to be.
Yeah,
just the young defenseman in the NHL right now is pretty impressive.
And this next upcoming draft class is not going to do anything to slow that down.
Yeah, another Hughes brother coming out, so
yeah,
it'll be interesting.
All right, so let's move into. I want to talk about the Vezina next. This one, another one where the nominees are already out. It's Connor Hellebuyck, Tuukka Rask, and Andrei Vasilevsky. To me, the front runner is Hellebuyck, but what do you guys think? Let's start with Marshall.
Yeah, I would definitely go with Hellebuyck here. I mean, if just look at Winnipeg's defense, they pretty much have nobody that's actually notable, and their defense is pretty much Hellebuyck here. If Hellebuyck did not play the way that he did all season, I don't even know if Winnipeg was able to squeak into this play-in scenario here. And to be honest, this whole Hellebuyck factor kind of makes them a scary team going into the playoffs. So it's not necessarily a knock on Rask or Vasilevsky, but if you just look at the defense that both teams have surrounded them with, you've got to give the edge here to Hellebuyck.
Definitely. What do you think, John?
I agree, and I'm a Bruins fan, and I'm picking Hellebuyck in this. When you look at the teams in front of Tuukka Rask and Andrei Vasilevsky, you're looking at two of the easily top 5 teams in the NHL.
Yeah, 1 and 2 in the East.
They're putting up incredible numbers, but the teams in front of them are helping them greatly in doing that. When you look at what's in front of Connor Hellebuyck, especially that defense, losing Byfuglien, losing Tyler Myers, losing Jacob Trouba, that D-core got dismantled, and Hellebuyck still came out and played at an incredibly high level, and that team I don't think would be anywhere near the playoffs if it wasn't for Connor Hellebuyck.
Yep.
Right, and I just said the same thing about Hughes, but I believe it's more so true for Connor Hellebuyck. This was the second race that was my closest, in my opinion. He could definitely be the MVP of the Jets. This guy stole the show for them. He's leading the league in NHL appearances, shots faced, saves, and shutouts. This guy is definitely going to run away with this one, in my opinion. So, yeah, you guys touched on the defense on the other two teams. It's just way better than what the Jets have.
Yeah. Definitely. I think there's a case to be made that without Hellebuyck, the Jets missed the play-in entirely. He elevated them that much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, especially with seasons, Scheifele and Wheeler and Laine didn't necessarily have the seasons that we've seen them have in the past years. I mean, Kyle Connor did elevate his game a lot, but that's kind of talking about the offensive side of the puck. You guys have mentioned, this Winnipeg D-core is very thin, maybe one of the thinnest in the entire league.
Yeah, absolutely. I think honestly, I think that Hellebuyck will get a couple of Hart votes. I don't think he makes it as a finalist, and he definitely doesn't win it. But I think he'll get a couple votes for the Hart just because his season was that good.
Agreed.
Yeah. A couple guys that I would like to kind of touch on that could be or could have been finalists are both Darcy Kemper in Arizona, and Jacob Markstrom from Vancouver.
Mm-hmm. I had Bennington as well.
Yeah, Bennington could definitely be up there. Maybe didn't necessarily have the type of season that these other 3 finalists had, but yeah, he's a respectable guy. But before Arizona,
before he got hurt,
lost,
really.
Before Arizona lost Darcy Kemper, they were like pretty solidly inside of a playoff spot. I know the season was really young, but then once Kemper went down, even after picking up Taylor Hall, they ended up just falling on their face a little bit. So he's a guy that I feel like could have definitely made a push for this award. And Jacob Markstrom was also playing out of his mind before he got injured as well.
Definitely. I think Kemper was my number 2, before he went down.
Yes. If Kemper didn't get hurt, he, I think, would have been a finalist this year. He was playing real before that injury.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. But that's kind of, we're talking about what ifs here, but definitely thought I'd give a couple of shout-outs to those guys.
Give him a little name recognition there, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, Marshall and I talked about this one a little bit last night. The Masterton Trophy this year is one of the more competitive Masterton Trophy races we've seen in recent years, which I don't know that that's a good thing. But the finalists you're looking at are Stephen Johns on the Stars, Oscar Lindblom and from the Flyers, and Bobby Ryan from the Senators. To me, this is more of a 2-horse race. You're looking at either Lindblom or Bobby Ryan, and I think you have to give the edge to Lindblom for now. What are you guys' thoughts on this one?
I also had Lindblom going to win this one. Nothing against the other 2 struggles. I think it's just a little bit harder to overcome cancer than stop drinking alcohol, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about last night, Billy and I were. Any other year, I feel like Bobby Ryan runs away with this award. And, we were also saying, like, maybe you can do some sort of co-award like they did in the NHL with the Rookie of the Year Rantanen season. But I don't really see that happening. Obviously, it's a little bit different in the NHL than the AHL. But, yeah, Lindblom, in my opinion, just, like, this whole story and the way that, like, the Flyers and the entire city of Philadelphia kind of gathered around him and in his fight with cancer is just really inspiring. But Bobby Ryan does have a very solid, case here, especially, like, coming back and scoring, like, a hat trick in his first game back. It was one of the most inspiring moments in the NHL that I've seen in the last 5-10 years. So
I think Lindblom is going to win, but I think Lindblom should win it next year when he actually comes back and plays.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think Bobby Ryan should win it this year. To me, it's a 2-horse race between Ryan and Lindblom. I agree with that. I think Ryan should win it this year, and Lindblom should get it next year when he actually comes back and plays. And that would, because they're honestly both very deserving, and it's weird how it happened in the same year where now we have this. Masterson's usually a trophy that either there's a clear winner or no one is even really thinking about, and then this year you have these major stories going on all in the same year. I think Lindblom should get it next year when he actually comes back and plays, and then Ryan should get it this year.
That is a fair point.
That's a pretty easy way to settle it then too.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, if it's for your dedication to hockey, I think there's definitely a case to be made that you need to be playing hockey at the end of the year, or at least during the year, to win it. So definitely, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So before we talk about the big one, there's one more that I want to talk about, and that's the Lady Byng. We just got the nominees earlier this week, and this is another one that McKinnon is up for. You've also got Austin Matthews and Ryan O'Reilly, so the Colorado connection is strong with the former Evan O'Reilly as well. I don't know that I love what this trophy has turned into, because really what it is it's who's the top 15 to 20 scorer that had the fewest penalty minutes. And I mean, if that's all we're talking about, these guys all are fairly deserving because none of them had more than 12 penalty minutes this year, and they were all very good. But how do you guys think that this one plays out? Let's start with you, John.
This is always I have no idea ever how to gauge this award.
Yeah,
it's one that, like, most of the awards you know, like, going in what to look for, but this one, it just seems like who doesn't take penalties and has a lot of points every year. And I mean, literally all of these guys fit the bill. I think they all have a strong case. As far as who's going to win, again, this is one, if I was a writer, I would just have no clue how to even vote on this. Like, what's separating these guys?
Yeah.
I feel like
Exactly.
Matthews is definitely going to get looked at just because of the Toronto connection and
Definitely.
how the league is with Toronto. But I think McKinnon definitely has a very strong case, as does O'Reilly. Though McKinnon, with the point production this year, probably a little bit stronger than O'Reilly's. So, it's probably down to Matthews and McKinnon. And which way it goes, I really have no idea, because this is one of those weird awards that you really don't know.
Yeah. In my opinion, this award's a little bit of like a hoax, I guess you could say. It's supposed to be about like on-ice sportsmanship, like in showing some sort of like on-ice dedication and sportsmanship and all that. But then a lot of people like look at these guys and are like, sportsmanship when it comes to like Ryan O'Reilly, who drove a truck through a Tim Hortons at 2 a.m, and then Austin Matthews, his whole debacle.
Yep.
That was not exactly a good look for himself or the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. But then a year later, he gets nominated for an award that's supposed to be about sportsmanship, albeit, yes, an on-ice sportsmanship. But yeah, if you're looking from an outsider's perspective, as fans like we are, it's a bit weird to see a couple of these guys get nominated for a sportsmanship award.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not in that locker room. I'm not playing against them. I'm not a ref. So maybe we're seeing something that everyone else is not seeing.
Right. I think, actually, I disagree with the Matthews-McKinnon race. I think it's McKinnon-O'Reilly on this one. Mostly because Austin Matthews does have some on-ice instances where he's a little bit disrespectful, hence the Scott Stanberg incident, where he's like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, this guy grinded to get the NHL. But plays like that make me think that Matthews is not the sportsmanship guy so much as, maybe O'Reilly, who's kind of a staple in this award, at least finalist-wise. But on the first nomination, I think they're going to give it to McKinnon.
But you can almost make a case that McKinnon's like on-ice sportsmanship hasn't necessarily been.
Well, I've never seen
absolutely
McKinnon do anything like that.
I mean, the whole Jared Bednar situation was a little bit interesting when he fell off the bench after yelling at him.
You can get heated. You can get heated on the bench and still be a good sport. That's fine.
No, exactly. And this is why it kind of comes back a little bit into who put up the most points without taking the most penalty minutes, which is really what this award is about.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say McKinnon does have the most penalty minutes of the bunch, I believe, with his whole
At 12.
12.
Yeah.
His whole 12.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, who knows how this one goes. But I'm an Avs fan, and I'm wearing a McKinnon shirt at the moment, so I'm giving it to McKinnon. And that is my reasoning, and it's all I need.
Yeah.
I'll go McKinnon here as well.
Yeah, I'm going
I
McKinnon.
don't
Just
know.
mostly because I don't think Matthews has shown the on-ice sportsmanship, and I think if they're trying to stick to the code, then they're not going to pick Matthews, but you never know. These
Maybe
writers
like-
are crazy.
A Tom Wilson, Makachuk could be up there too.
Yeah, that's right. Brad Marchand, next year's finalists.
All right, John, who are you giving the award to?
I'll go with McKinnon for that one.
Yeah, there you go. Please the home crowd.
Yeah.
All right, and so let's talk about. We talked a little bit about the Jack Adams on our sports pod. So it's this is another award that I don't know always goes to the most deserving candidate, but you do have 3 deserving candidates this year with Alain Vigneault for the Flyers, if I pronounced that right. You got John Tortorella on the Blue Jackets, and you got Bruce Cassidy on the Bruins. I mean, you just look at the success of these teams, and that's enough to say, hey, they did something right. Who do you guys think is kind of the front runner in this race, and how close do you think it is? Let's start with Zach.
To me, this is a pretty close race. Cassidy obviously leading his team to a President's Trophy this year. even though with the shortened seasons, I still think, the Bruins were definitely one of the best teams in the league. But if I had to give this award to somebody this year, it's got to be Torts for losing those 2 star players and a goaltender.
Yeah.
That's, to me, coaching your team out of that and still being, decent and maybe getting into the playoffs, making the play-in. But I think you got to give it to Torts this year.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, I'm 100% on Team Tortorella for this one. I think Alain Vigneault has a very good case given where the Flyers were last year versus where they are now. But for Tortorella to take that team that lost Panarin, that lost Sergei Bobrovsky, and dealt with a ton of injuries this season to key players, like Seth Jones missed time, Cam Atkinson missed serious time. That team, for them to even be in the playoff race at the end of the season was an incredible coaching job. And, they're in the play-ins now, potentially going to the playoffs. I can't see Tortorella not winning it after doing what he did this year with that team after they lost so much.
Yeah, I'm 100% agreeance with that one. I do think there is a case for Cassidy, though, too. Like Zach said, leading his team to a President's Trophy. Even with the shortened season, they were pretty much on track, barring some sort of, major collapse and major resurgence from the Lightning, which, you never know. But still, President's Trophy winner, one of the better regular season teams that we've seen over the last 5-6 years. So, but, yeah, I'm still going towards, like you guys have mentioned, losing Dutchy, losing Ryan Dzingel, losing Panarin, losing Bob, and just still, coaching a relevant team is pretty freaking impressive. Especially, dealing with a rookie goaltender for most of the season, with Elvis Merzlikins.
Yeah. Elvis got hot, though.
He did get hot, but, something's just to be said about, some coaching styles there and just, leading his team.
Definitely.
To a relevant playoff position.
My favorite Avs game of the year actually was the one against the Blue Jackets. We won it 2-1. It was late in the third period, and we just could not beat Elvis. And then McKinnon ended up scoring the game-winning goal on the hardest shot I've ever seen, just a clap bomb from the top of the circles right over his shoulder. It was one of my favorite Avs moments this year. But definitely, John touched on the injuries, and I think that's really big here because not only did they lose all those players, their good players were hurt for a lot of the year. I remember when we were for Colorado, when we were in some of those big injury troubles, we were missing a lot of our stars, and we were like, at least we're not Columbus, because they just had it. They had it worse than anyone. It was brutal.
Yeah. Any honorable mentions that you guys maybe would like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, Jared Bednar.
Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh, I think, got overlooked a bit for this.
I would agree with that too.
Okay. They had major injury issues this year.
Yeah. Gensel, Crosby, just named a couple.
Yep.
Missed significant time. So.
Right.
Yeah, Sullivan's probably definitely overlooked. I'd say Bednar can,
he could have been a finalist for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In due time, maybe with Bednar. But the Avs are dealing with a plethora of injuries. Throughout, especially the second half of the season. And actually, with the first half, wasn't necessarily great either.
Yeah, we're missing Landy and Nico.
Missing 8 games at a time. McCarr missing time. So dude, at a time we had a top line of McKinnon, Nichushkin, and Donskoy or something like that.
It was. It's been better. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were playing Jason Megna on the power play multiple times this season, so that kind of tells you where we were at. Yeah, Bednar had a great year. I don't think that he would have beat Torts out for it anyway, but I think one of these days he'll get a nomination, and I think it'll be well-deserved. So let's talk about the big one. I'm not going to talk about the Ted Lindsay because we're going to talk about the Hart and, is it really that much different of a conversation? Although I guess before we do have 2 more that we could talk about. Let's talk about the Selke and Norris real quick. The Norris, to me, is I don't see how John Carlson doesn't win it. I think there have been a lot of good defenders this year, but the sheer number of points Carlson put up are they're massive, and I think that he runs away with it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that.
I don't necessarily know if it's deserved though. Another kind of trophy that if it's like the best offensive defenseman it typically goes to.
Yeah.
Especially in like a season like John Carlson had, even though he's not outstanding on the defensive side of the puck. I would definitely, before Dougie Hamilton got hurt, he was my front runner. I definitely think there's still a case to be made about Victor Hedman. But in previous years, we've seen it before with Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns. The defenseman that has runs away with the most points typically wins this award, and that's no different than this season with John Carlson.
For sure.
I'd have agreed.
What do you think, John?
I've got Carlson for that one. Roman Josi had an incredible season on a team that overall greatly underperformed. He had 65 points and with 22 on that Predators team that everyone was looking at all year, like what is going on in Nashville. And he has a strong case. I think Pietrangelo in St. Louis had a really good year. Victor Hedman always is in the conversation.
Yeah.
But for me, it's John Carlson's. Just the year he had, the offensive production while still being a top pair D-man is just I can't see him not winning.
John, I have a guy for you that maybe doesn't give a whole lot of recognition, but how about Charlie McAvoy? What are your thoughts on him?
He's good. I love McAvoy, but he's not there yet offensively. He's still very young, and I saw massive strides in his game defensively this year. He reached a whole new level of shutdown ability as far as keeping the opponent off the board, but offensively he's not at that level yet. I certainly think he will be in the future, but he's still a couple years away.
Yeah, he's another guy that I feel like kind of gets mixed in the shuffle with all these young defensemen that are coming into the league. Just being on that superpower of Boston. There's a lot of other guys that kind of takes the shine away from McAvoy. But yeah, like you said, I feel like he could be a consistent Norris front runner for years to come as well with the Dahlins and the Heiskanens and the McCarrs and the Hughes. So another young defenseman that is going to be fun to watch over the next 15 years.
For sure.
Yeah. I think Jacob Slavin, Dougie Hamilton's running mate in Carolina, deserves some recognition as well. Another guy that had an incredible year. We've talked about it before, but that Carolina defense is stacked. They've got a lot to love there. Let's move now into the other defensive award for the defensive forward. This one, the Selke, another one that it's for defense, but you got to put up some points to really qualify yourself, which is really, to me, the reason that Nichushkin is nowhere near this award. But if it were purely based on defense, I think even coming off the wing, he would have a solid case to make. To me, the front runner, we don't have nominees yet, but the front runner to me is Couturier. Anyone have any other people they'd like to give some credit to?
I got Bergeron and O'Reilly. Oh, you got Mark Stone. Okay, that's interesting.
Like I've said previously on this podcast, I'm a big Mark Stone fan. I don't think he's going to be a finalist, though. But I feel like it's fairly deserving. But yeah, Zach, like you said, Patrice Bergeron, Ryan O'Reilly. But I do think this is Couturier's year with this one.
Yeah, agreed. O'Reilly's the staple on this award. And the stat that I saw that I liked the most on O'Reilly was its lowest expected chances per 60 minutes. And that's just a big-time stat for this award in particular. Definitely. But like you guys touched on, Couturier probably does take it in the end.
Yeah, I think this is finally Sean Couturier's year to win this. He's so good in his own zone, and he was always a good defensive center, and the offense has really come over the past couple years for him, making him a legitimate top-line center in the NHL. And I'm biased towards Patrice Bergeron. I get to watch him play night in, night out, and he is the greatest two-way forward that I think I've ever seen play. But he's won, 4 of these already?
Yeah, this is kind of like his award.
Yeah,
this is his award for sure.
It is.
So.
I think that this is the year that Couturier finally gets it, and he's more than deserving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the post-Datsuk era in NHL, it's definitely, this trophy's, belonged to Patrice Bergeron.
Yep.
Definitely no knock on him this season. Had a fantastic year, like always, but Couturier really helped elevate the Flyers game overall.
Definitely. Marshall, I know you talked about Mark Stone, and I love Mark Stone for this award just because it's it's very rare that you can see a winger win it, and Mark Stone really is the only guy that's always in that conversation as the best defensive player playing off the wing, which to me is almost even more impressive just because as a center you have plenty of opportunities to play defensive hockey, and that's just not as true of a winger. So Mark Stone definitely deserves some love for that.
Absolutely. And like you said, Billy, like if it was purely on defense, I mean, the underlying, stats show that Nichushkin had a fantastic defensive season. So it's going to be interesting. Like we did some line combinations. If they do end up going with like a Kadri, Nichushkin, Landeskog second line, that's a true shutdown. That's a true shutdown line. So that would be kind of fun to watch if that's the case, and I really hope they do end up doing that. Definitely.
Okay, so I've teased it a little bit, and I almost skipped these last two awards, but we're now going to talk about the Hart. This is the other big one for the Avs fans. We kind of sandwiched them at the front in the beginning. McKinnon lost out in 2017. He's back in the running. He just keeps on being nominated for it. He's a real deserving player. Does he win it, John? I know you told me off the air that he is your your pick for the Hart.
Yes, he's
go ahead and
guy this year.
Nice. So what do you think elevates him?
There's one stat that I've seen this year that makes me pick McKinnon over everyone else. He had 43 more points than anyone else on the team.
Yeah, over Cale Makar.
The second was a rookie defenseman.
Yes. He had 93 points this year. Makar was second on the team with 50. McKinnon put the team on his back this season and not just brought them to the playoffs, but they were the second best team in the entire Western Conference. No, I don't think it gets more valuable than that. And all the injuries that the Avs had with Landeskog missing time early in the season, Rantanen missing a good chunk of this year, Kadri missing time, Makar missing time. The injuries just piled up, and McKinnon was the only one who just took this team on his back and carried them to being a top team in the league. And I don't think it gets any more valuable than that.
Absolutely. You hit on it there. And yes, personally, I would have McKinnon as my front runner. And actually, I would go Panarin second just because the definition of this award is most valuable to your team. It's not who puts up the most points, which a lot of times that's, ends up going that way, which is why I think Draisaitl is going to win it, unfortunately. But Panarin, another guy, absolutely insanely valuable to the Rangers, and, elevated them to a status that they, could have made a late season push into the playoffs before all the shutdown happened. But like I said, though, I think Draisaitl was going to win it. Just his absolute monstrous point production season is a little bit of that X factor that I think is going to push a lot of these voters over McKinnon and Panarin.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Zach.
I think McKinnon ends up taking it in the end. Like John touched on that stat, they're trying to stay consistent. The year he lost it to Taylor Hall, you got to give this to McKinnon. Through 50 games, he scored 72 points, which is absolutely outrageous, especially in a time when Rantanen and Landeskog are down for, in a 60-game season, a fourth of your season at 20 games. So what this guy did this year is unreal, and they're trying to stay consistent. You got to pick McKinnon for this one.
Yeah, definitely.
I would totally agree.
And I love McKinnon for the award. I do also think that it goes to Draisaitl. I think the Art Ross is going to be hard to overlook. But the year that McKinnon lost to Taylor Hall, the reason that he lost was because two writers left him entirely off their ballot, instead going for Mikko Rantanen, basically with the explanation that, well, if McKinnon wasn't the most valuable player on the team, how can he be the most valuable player in the league? I think there might be a chance that that happens to Draisaitl this year. That a couple of writers say, you know what, McDavid's the most valuable player on this team, so Draisaitl can't be the most valuable player in the league, and they kind of screw him over a little bit.
That is, in a sense, a principled stance. But when McDavid is hurt for most of the year, or a lot of your team is injured, then it kind of becomes null and void, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
They could steal some votes from each other for sure. So there is definitely a good shot that McKinnon ends up winning this award. But yeah, like Billy said, just an Art Ross and absolutely running away with Art Ross is a little bit too big of a factor for me here. It scares me a little bit because like I think McKinnon over the last 3 years has been absolutely like deserving of this award. Last year Kucherov ran away with it just because of like the points production, and McKinnon cannot get that 100-point plateau yet. And
97, 99, 93.
Like this year he was on track. He ended up getting hurt before the season got paused, and I was like, God dang it, this is another year that McKinnon's not going to get 100. But still, just in terms of like point production and like the amount of games that he's played is really impressive.
Yeah.
Like a couple of years ago when he was, in my opinion, the Hart Trophy like should have been the Hart Trophy winner, and Taylor Hall like stole it from him a little bit. I know that's probably a topic that could cause some heat here, but like in that season he ended up like missing 10 games, and that was his like 97-point year. So if he didn't miss those 10 games,
and he missed 5 or 6 last year with his 99 as well. So he's been real close.
Get there, but
I want to go back to the stat that both John and Zach talked a little bit about. McKinnon led his team by 43 points. That is the most between 1 and 2 on a team since the 2007-2008 season, when Ovechkin led Backstrom by 50. Funny enough, Backstrom also a rookie that year, similar to Cale Makar, which is a little bit funny. But like that stat, like that is a massive, massive gap.
Yes.
Yeah, and like John had said, I mean, it's not like the Avs were just like an 8th seed. They were the 2nd seed in the NHL, or in the Western Conference, and in my opinion, had a really good shot at overtaking St.
They
Louis.
were pushing for it,
especially with an 82nd game against St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, like I said, but I think Draisaitl is going to win it, but McKinnon would get my vote.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Does anyone have anything to say about the awards before we move on here?
Not really. I mean, you want to talk a little bit about training camp?
I want to talk a little bit about training camp. Marshall brought it up a little bit off air. So Makar is not there right now. He left early yesterday and missed training camp today. As of recording this, we're recording on Sunday, so we don't know if there will be any updated news when this comes out tomorrow. But it's a little bit scary. NHL not disclosing any injuries just to kind of protect player privacy. Without Makar, this team definitely takes a hit.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it does. Don't necessarily know what's going on with him. It could be anywhere, like Billy was saying to me last night, it could be anywhere from a pulled like hamstring to like a broken leg. Just they are not allowed to disclose any type of information, which a little bit, I mean, I know this is kind of like the NHL always does this with their injuries. They're very like straightforward, like upper body, lower body. But then all the other leagues like NBA, MLB, NFL all come out and say that this guy did have like COVID, and like this guy has like a broken leg, and the NHL is just not going down that path, and I'm not too sure why.
I just think it's
transparency
player
would
privacy.
definitely help out. Yeah, true, but the transparency definitely would stop people from assuming COVID or
That's
something
true.
like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could go either way on it. I tend to lean towards, like, if the player really wants you to know, then they can tell you, but
Right, that's true.
I value privacy a little bit, so I'm definitely understanding, like, as much as we want to know, we don't need to, so it's kind of the NHL's...
like a timetable, wouldn't you? Like,
what?
Wouldn't you like a timetable?
Yeah.
Yeah, the time frame would be nice. And we do have a little bit of hints here and there. When asked if he would be back yesterday, Bednar said that he wasn't sure, so it seems more like a day-to-day thing, but there's definitely a lot of speculation here. It would be nice to have a little bit of a timetable, but we do not get that, and that's just kind of how it is.
if I'm not mistaken, the same thing has happened to Sidney Crosby. He
Yeah,
just left
Sidney
practice.
Crosby.
Yep.
Jacob Voracek yesterday.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
see, that
Voracek
makes me
back
think it's a
today.
COVID
today.
thing.
That's
Oh,
good.
Voracek came back. Okay.
Flyers
David
are an interesting
Pastrnak in
team.
Boston, we know a little bit about what's actually going on there, but he was unfit to participate, and everyone started freaking out. But then his agent actually came out and said what was going on, and basically he could have potentially been exposed, so they're holding him out precautionary reasons. He's tested negative, but they're still holding him out to make sure nothing comes up. So he'll hopefully be back soon, but it's so vague. We're getting no information, and unless
Exactly.
themselves wants to divulge that information, we're just not gonna know.
Yeah. And it's definitely frustrating at times, but that seems to be how it is. The other interesting development that came out of Avalanche camp today, and I don't think it's necessarily very meaningful, but they were rolling out Logan O'Connor on the third line, just giving him a couple looks there. So a guy that really he seemed like maybe the 15th forward. I think he's probably 14 now, but definitely interesting that they're giving him looks. That maybe they try and get him into a couple games, whether it's the exhibition or those round robin games. But I love LOC, so it's nice to see him get a little bit of playtime.
Yeah, he was definitely a guy that we were mentioning as our 15th forward or something. But I mean, who knows if he's been playing really well in training camp? Maybe the Avalanche brass does give him some sort of look here. Another thing that I saw happen is McKinnon put Byram on a pedestal and walked him. So
Yeah, Byram hasn't had the best camp.
Definitely not important news, but welcome to the NHL moment for Jordan Byram.
Yeah, for sure. Not a easy guy to run up against when you got McKinnon. So, yeah, definitely some. I just love that we're actually getting some real things to talk about. It's not all speculation anymore. Actual things are happening, and here soon we're gonna have real hockey games to talk about. So
Yeah, it's getting
13 days.
exciting.
I can't wait. So all right,
Wait
before
for
we,
that.
yeah, this is really exciting. All right, before we close out the show today, anyone have any last kind of comments here?
Kel McCarr for Calder?
Yeah, as every episode.
Thanks to John again, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
John, I'm
shout
going to go
out
ahead
to
and give
John,
you a
Awful
chance to plug yourself here. Tell us about your channel, where can they find you on social media, all that.
Thank you. Yeah, Off the Wall Hockey on YouTube. I cover all 31 teams, the entire NHL, as much as I can. So whatever team you're a fan of, I'm going to be doing stuff that you'll enjoy. And on Twitter as well, at Off the Wall Hawk. Just take the EY off of hockey because it was too long for the Twitter handle. That's pretty much it. Thank you guys again for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming. All right, thank you to everybody for watching. Definitely check out John's channel as well as some of the other things we got going on around the Off-Brand Network. You can check out our sports pod as well as our top 10s pod. And you can find our podcast pretty much anywhere now. We recently got added to Google Play, so we're now there, as well as iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, obviously. That's where we get most of our viewership from, so that's where a lot of you are watching. But we're going to get out of here, and we'll see you next week.